basically there's the Leapfrog Group, which is a group that grades hospitals in terms of hospital safety. And essentially, we've got this year fewer Illinois hospitals have earned their A grades for safety. Leapfrog has issued lower grades, including Northwestern Memorial, which is our top hospital here in the city, has a grade of C. And it's just what's happened is in this point is that a lot of the hospitals under the strain, buckling under the strain, even our top hospitals, as we've talked about just now with Rush, are not able to provide that level of care. And this, of course, complicates things for everybody.
Yeah.
People who have, again, when you have situations where people who have gold standard health insurance
Our
can't get appropriate
politicians.
care, but they
Oh,
can't.
okay. I'm sorry.
Well,
You're talking about regular people with gold
I'm
standard.
talking about regular people or people who are actually quite well off, still
Okay.
can't necessarily get that because if you're in an ambulance, they're going to, you don't always get to choose which hospital you go to. And in this case, if they take you to Northwestern Memorial, which is supposed to be one of the top hospitals, in the state, if not the country, and it's getting a safety grade of C. It's buckling. That the endowment that Northwestern University has is something like $8 or $9 billion. It's they've got more money than a lot of countries do.
Yeah.
And I'm saying that the system. I
Seriously.
mean, the center is not holding here. We've seen that this pandemic, which I believe has been completely mismanaged. And here we've seen now an ongoing compromising of even the best that our healthcare system has to offer.
Yeah. It's very troubling. Best hospitals in the city receiving these kinds of grades.
Yeah.
It's astonishing. I mean, it literally leaves me speechless because these are institutions, especially for those of us who've grown up in Chicago all of our lives. Northwestern, Rush, that's where you go, and
Yeah.
this is what the grades are now. It's
Now
crazy.
I got to tell you, Rush and University of Chicago each got A's. That's in terms of safety. Again, we've had this
Wait, but the
unfortunate
article
experience.
says Northwestern earns a C grade for safety.
Northwestern earns a C. Wait, University of I'm sorry, Rush and University of Chicago have earned
Got
A
A's.
grades.
Okay, okay. I didn't see that
Elmhurst
this morning.
has, but again, Northwestern, and I visited people at Rush. I'm sorry, at Northwestern.
Northwestern.
I was there. And they have these amazing rooms for their patients, including beds for friends and family to stay with them.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
it's just
let me talking about beds and for people to stay with them at Rush. Do you know what their limit is visitors per day?
what.
One.
Well, that's not uncommon at this point because of the concern about the pandemic.
I get that, Lainie, but if somebody comes in the morning by themselves
Hmm.
and someone comes in the evening by themselves, come on, the pandemic, especially if you're dealing with people who are like dealing with distress and I would also dare say like emotionally um, uh, uh, compromised or lonely, given the fact that they don't know what the hell their test results are going to be or what's wrong with them. I get the pandemic, I get the safety measures, and I only say that because the other day I went to go visit my friend. Going back to that story, and she asked me to bring some items from her apartment because I was taking care of her animals. Also, stopped by to feed them, and I got there at 7 o'clock at night. Hour left visiting hours. Another friend had visited her, I think, at like 11 in the morning. And oh no, you can't go up. Why? She had her one visitor for the day. I'm like, well, you tell the nurses to come down and pick this up because she needs it. And I didn't want to lose it with the person at the front desk because it wasn't their fault. But I'm just like, I'm bringing things here. There's an hour left, and she's afraid, right? So or she's having a rough time. A friendly, and it's not just her. Anybody who's in the hospital, I would think would be in
I
better
think people
spirits.
absolutely do benefit from having visitors. And
Yeah,
in fact, I know that I believe in like rehab centers. I don't know if this study's been done in hospitals, but I believe it's been done in nursing homes and rehab centers. People who have more visitors get better care from the staff.
yeah, yeah.
And I wouldn't be surprised if that's true in hospitals. Again, I think that this is just showing a system that is ill equipped at this point to do its job.
Yeah.
Even when you're working within the for-profit model, it's no longer able to do what it's supposed to do. And I reported yesterday that a lot of people are leaving are leaving healthcare,
Yeah.
for a number of reasons. And one of them is including poor pay, or people, you have massive healthcare systems wanting to lower wages for their staff. And I had a story here again, from ABC7 Chicago, that kind of illustrates another one of the complaints, and that is violence against healthcare staff.
Do you want me to play the video?
You don't have to play the video if you don't want to, but U of I, University of Illinois, um, hospital, the nurses are talking about the violence against them. I report that in some places they're actually bringing guard dogs into the ERs. They've got security. In some cases, they have police officers there, and it because the violence has always been a real problem in the ERs. If you've ever talked to anybody again who works in the ER, they'll tell you, I've got a friend who got stabbed working as a nurse.
Hmm.
That it can be a real problem. People don't go into these professions with the intention of engaging in fisticuffs on a regular basis.
Yeah.
If you're a cop, if you are a security guard, if you're a bouncer, something like that, okay, that's what you sign up for. But at some point, people who are in other professions where everyday aggression is not something that you plan to deal with,
Yeah.
eventually they're just going to walk away. And apparently there's been, we know that there's been an increase in this sort of thing in public environments. There was that poor kid at Disney World, for heaven's sakes, who got punched out by an irate father for being asked to wear a mask, and the kid had to have reconstructive surgery.
I
People
did
are
hear that.
attacking.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And this is, people are being physically, many major retailers in the US, when the mask mandates came up, they said, we're going to have them. We're not going to enforce them because we have no way of ensuring the safety of our staff. And so this is what's going on now in hospitals and in emergency rooms. And you have hospital workers who are saying, we're done. There's our safety is not being taken care of. And here at
I,
U of I, we've got a nurse who's basically saying, U of I, of course, is saying we do have robust security processes, and this nurse is saying, yeah, not so much.
you can't blame them, along with the fact that they're taking pay cuts and they're working for like not what they deserve to begin with, given the
Yeah.
hours and overtime that they have to put in during what's been happening for the past 2 years.
And people, I get that people are frustrated. One of the things that happened during the past what's going on 2 years now, is mental health care in this country, which has never been all that great, suddenly took a nosedive. I know of somebody, a dear friend of mine. Here's one example, but I have a dear friend who has very serious dual diagnosis of mental illness. And this individual was basically told by his therapist, I will only see you online. And that didn't work. Just simply did not work for this individual. And this individual has not had a therapist in, 18 months, still taking the medications needed to stabilize the condition.
The
But cannot.
therapist won't see them because of the pandemic, or because they're concerned about outbursts related to their condition.
No, because of the pandemic. The
Pandemic.
therapist
Okay.
will only treat people online via Zoom.
Whoa.
And a lot of therapists are doing that, and I understand the reason why they're doing that. But the problem is you have a lot of people with severe mental health conditions
Yes.
for whom that just simply does not work, even if they do have an internet connection and a
And this is what
computer.
and this goes to what Kathy Powers shared when we were talking about the limited visitors in hospitals. Same with your friend and online therapy. A basic human need is the need to belong. Isolation is counterintuitive, and with the whole world shutting down and relying on Zoom, I mean, if you're a doctor and you can confirm that your patient is vaccinated and they show you their card, and they can even wear their mask into a therapy session. It just shocks me that medical professionals like the one you're talking about in this situation aren't using their judgment as it relates to people's isolation and more problems that are going to happen as a
Well,
result of the depression and the isolation.
and a lot of mental health practitioners, I mean, this has been problems been brewing for a long time. We know what happened here in Chicago under Rahm,
Yeah.
when they closed down half the mental health clinics in the city. But there, this has been going on for quite some time because of the way health insurance companies reimburse mental health practitioners. It is so poorly done that mental health care is actually one form of health care where you have an advantage if you don't have insurance.
Huh.
As long as you can pay cash. If people have even tried this, they'll call up, they'll say, I have insurance, insurance, insurance. The second they say, I can pay in cash, then they get the call back from the practitioner.
But who can pay in cash these days? That's the
Well,
problem.
some people, the very wealthy who can pay in
Well, the
cash
wealthy. Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
file their own claim for direct reimbursement.
I see.
But this has been an ongoing problem that's been brewing for a very long time. And now it's coming to a head. And some of the people who are taking the brunt are, for example, retail workers, customer facing positions, and of course, people who are working on the front lines in medical centers and hospitals. And that forces these people out of their profession, which only makes the matters worse. It's a situation that's collapsing, and it's not something that there's no easy answer at this point because, frankly, we're reaping the fruit of decades of neglect.
Okay. And capitalist healthcare,
Yeah.
for-profit healthcare, and I'm sure that yeah, some of the security issues that you're citing certainly may have played some factors into what we saw over at Rush or other hospitals. I saw several security guards there, though. I didn't see anybody that looked threatening or violent, although there was one guy who we saw an outburst from because it was from the wait. He wanted to see a manager.
And
um,
I can't, it's horrible. I've been in, I was at myself, this was 20 years ago or whatever it was. I was at Rush emergency room right after the day after Christmas, with a very serious case of pneumonia. And, I had to languish for quite some time. I did get a bed fairly quickly. I was seen fairly quickly, but I was in pretty bad shape. And, it was just because you're in the center of a city, you're in the medical district, and, if people just needed attention. Now, I got, I think, very good care in some ways, although I'll tell you something that did happen. I'm not blaming them for this because they had a nursing shortage. They had a nursing shortage 20 years ago. 3 a.m., my IV bag ran out. There was a beeper going off. 45 minutes, I waited for a nurse.
oh my God, how
Kept
scary
on
that is.
kept on buzzing the nurses, and they kept on, just disconnecting. And finally, 45 minutes later, somebody came in to change the bag. Fortunately, I wasn't in any danger. I was just extremely annoyed.
Yeah, but
Um,
if you don't know enough about what's going into your the bag needing to get into you, and
well, I
you
knew
hear
what
that,
it was. It was an antibiotic, and I wasn't
all right, well,
going to
you
drop
knew
dead.
that, but other
No.
people that aren't as educated as you are have that's where the anxiety comes in. That's where suddenly it can complicate the situation of
But
a
what if my
patient.
condition had taken a turn for the worse? Maybe I
Of
could have been
course,
buzzing because I couldn't breathe.
exactly. No, I agree with that too.
Yeah.
I understand what you're saying.
It was just I'll tell you something. Yeah.